Hey everybody, today we are looking at a Lane Stahly Dead, a Stahly Live Blade vibrating razor. And we're going to take this thing apart. These things were made quite a long time ago, and the cool feature about them is that you can shave with them while you vibrate. And why anybody would want to do that, I don't know. Who am I to judge? Maybe that's fun. Anyway, unfortunately, taking one of these apart requires some special tools. I made these clamp wrenches, for lack of a better word, and I made these out of aluminum so I could grip the various diameters without damaging the finish on the razor body itself. And here I'm disconnecting or I'm breaking loose the main spring housing. You can see the main spring in there. And the problem with this razor, why I'm taking it apart, is one, I couldn't find any videos online on how to disassemble one of these. I couldn't find any pictures either, or what pictures I did find, they weren't really helpful, so I was just like, I'm going to tackle this myself. Here's another special tool I had to make, which is a mainspring retainer holder. I don't know what you call it. Watch guys, they'll know. But I made this specifically to contain the main spring and remove it from the mainspring housing. But anyway, so couldn't find anything online how to disassemble one of these, so I was just like, well, I'll do it myself. Again, unfortunately, you have to have these special tools. Well, I guess you could use a set of vice grips and maybe some vinyl vinyl jaws or something, or maybe like a old leather glove to grip it, not damage the knurling or the what is that, nickel plating on brass. Might be chrome, I don't know. But I had to make 4 of these wrenches, and I just basically clamped up. I cut some aluminum and then measured the several diameters of the razor body, and put a spacer in between the 2 pieces of aluminum after I drilled the holes for the bolts, clamped it together, put it back into the machine. I'm using a CNC machine, and circle milled the several diameters out. That one I had to machine 2 separate diameters to hold the small diameter and the larger diameter, just so it'd be like more even. And here I take off the snout, and in the snout you can see the little counterweight that vibrates everything, and in there I'm fiddling with the gearbox. That's a gearbox, just floats in there, and there's a whole ton of gearing up. I don't know the proper term off the top of my head. Not reducing, but increasing the ratio from the mainspring to the counterweight. And on that counterweight, it actually has a little brake shoe is held in with a spring. So as it gets up to RPM, that brake shoe, instead of it just like spinning up into oblivion, that little brake shoe expands on the inside of the snout and slows it down to a manageable vibrating speed. Here I am, sorry, you get to look at my prettier hand, and I'm gripping the end of the, I don't know what you call it, the main shaft, the power takeoff shaft for this main spring, and I was unwinding the tensions. What I'm trying to do right now is remove the gear cassette, and it's, again, like I said, it's just floating in there. I finally get brave, and I probably shouldn't do that, pry against the cassette, and it just popped out of there. I knew there was no there wasn't much, if at all, spring tension on it. That was pretty much the only thing holding the gear cassette in there. So now I'm going to fiddle with the retainer some more, and I finally had to just get brave and pull that dude out of there. Take a big breath. Here we go. And there she is. Besides there not being any videos of taking these apart, it's like this one, I actually have had this razor for years, and it stopped working years ago, and I didn't know how to take it apart, so I just shaved with it without the sweet vibration feature. And as you could see earlier in the video that it was like real stuck and gummy, so it's like another purpose for this is how to clean one of these. Spoiler alert, I don't get the thing fully disassembled. I get it disassembled enough. I don't get this one fully disassembled. I get it disassembled enough to clean it properly. Well, not properly. Good enough. I get it disassembled enough to clean it good enough. And I'm taking these 3 screws out that actually hold the mainspring housing and fix it to fixes the main body to that plate in there that has the 3 holes. That actually floats inside the mainspring housing. And those screws hold it together. They also retain that spring and that ratcheting hand that works against. Here I got some 91% alcohol that I'm putting on my grubby parts in. And they're pretty dirty. And years of use. Who knows how old this thing is. I saw like patents maybe from the 40s. I don't know, but and that's how I kind of like first started figuring out how these came apart. I was like, these things got to come apart somehow. First, I thought maybe they were all pressed together or something. No, they were all threaded together. I found some diagrams online. There, you can see that main shaft is actually trapped in there, and it traps the main spring housing onto the body. You can see that grubby grime on there. Like futilely, or in an act of futility, trying to clean all the grubbiness off with just a cotton swab and some alcohol. I mean, it does work, but this is as far as it comes apart, because of that shaft. The way it comes apart is that shaft is pressed onto that ring gear inside the main body. I didn't know that, and I guess I don't know if I mentioned it earlier. I purchased one on eBay to figure out how it came apart, and I knew that it like the several pieces unscrewed, and so I made the wrenches. But then when I got to this stage on the other razor, it was like, oh, come on, I got, I'm not taking it all the way apart unless I get that shaft out of there. And, well, spoiler alert, I destroyed the shaft of the other one. You'll see later. Yeah, so I soaked that for like 2-3 days in that 91 alcohol, rubbing alcohol, just regular rubbing alcohol. And that broke down most of the dirt, hairs, pubic hairs, and skin follicles, or hair follicles, skin cells. So it's still got some like surface grime on it, and it's pretty grubby in there. Just using a paper towel to like get the bulk of it out. And I thought that I don't know what it's called that acts on the main spring. Again, watch guys, they can comment or whatever. But is it a pawl or something? I don't know. It's a little hook on the side of the main shaft, and it's what the main spring acts on and rotates the shaft. Is how the main spring is connected to it. And I thought that if I pulled, like, I figured that was pressed into the side of the shaft. Right now I'm trying to line up the bolt holes. To no avail. I get there, but I thought that pawl, like, you could pull it out the side and then I could slide the shaft apart. But that's not that's not the case. So get another cotton swab out and put some 3-in-1 oil on it. I just use 3-in-1 oil to lubricate everything, clean everything, you know, whatever the alcohol didn't clean. And just kind of go to town with 3-in-1, clean everything up. It's really neat the way this, like the engineering that went into just a simple thing as, you know, for shaving back in the day. Oh man, if this thing vibrates, you get closer. See all that rust on there. Trying to get it out. There's another hook that acts on the other end of the spring. This main spring housing is also the knob to wind it up. But yeah, just cleaning up, coating the stuff in oil, so hopefully it takes a long time before it gets this bad again. No, probably won't be my problem. Yeah, another 100 of those, right? Oh well. And I don't know. Yeah, so I guess I could kind of tell you how that shaft comes apart. That shaft is a booger. It's, oh man. If I could get my hands on the engineer, you know, that shaft actually presses into that ring gear. I didn't know that because I just call it impatience or lack of knowledge in this area of engineering. I thought maybe it screwed into it or something, but it did not. It is pressed into that ring gear, and I tried several ways to get it apart on the other razor, trying to press it out of the back. Like maybe the body of the razor was 2 pieces and it pressed apart, or pressed together, and you could press it apart. And that's not the case. It was 1 piece, and that floating shaft, you know, captures the mainspring housing to the barrel, the main handle. Anyway, so I guess it's time for a reassembly. Well, a little more. Old dab will do you. So I thought that I could hold on to these screws with this screw holder. Alas, I could not. So Just gotta cross my fingers for luck. Use the tweezers. And that ended up working. It took some time trying to get the screws lined up. Getting the threads lined up just right. I also don't want to forget the anti-seize, you know, because these are going to be in a wet environment where water can get in them, and like there's nothing you can do about it really, short of just packing that thing full of grease. But you don't want to do that either, because it's not going to work. Viscous couplings and whatnot. But the guy down the road, you know, might appreciate something like that. A little bit of anti-seize on there. And let me tell you what, getting those screws in their holes straight was a booger. Especially with that spring on there too. I think I ended up just putting the spring on last, putting all this, because the spring is just like, it holds itself in there, you know. And speed this up because nobody wants to watch 10 minutes of a guy putting screws in. Especially if they take too much force to go in. Found that out the hard way with the other one. Yeah, spoiler alert, I broke a screw on the other one. All in all, on the other one, it's not ruined. If I were to make it functional again, I'd have to remake that shaft, the main shaft. I ended up breaking it to get it apart. I was trying to, ended up breaking it to get it apart. That's a bummer, but I got a video out of it. Yeah, those screws, I didn't like how tight they were going in, but it wasn't that bad. They went in. And why I surmise they went in bad is that they didn't have like a good lead in on the end of the screws. I don't know if you can see that in any of the close-ups, but they almost looked like they were broke off and then screwed in. And there you can see the gear cassette. I don't know how many step-ups that is, but yeah, again, it just floats in there. You just got to poke it in there and kind of fiddle around with it. And there's the counterweight. Get some of that sewing machine juice. Put some anti-seize on the threads. Although it did come apart fairly easily in that respect. The caps and everything. But just making sure. Come on now. Don't get impatient. There you can see a good shot of that little brake shoe. Centrifugal brake shoe. I don't know. Lead-filled snowshoe. Screwing that in just kind of hand tight. I guess it don't need to be any tighter than that, right? The main spring we're gonna just, and this was actually pretty easy to reinstall. All I had to do was just poke it in there and wind it back up. It just kind of self-aligned and all the planets lined up, everything worked. Just make sure it's on all the way on the pinion gear. Because it's not on there. That's something else that happened to the other razors, that I didn't have the pinion gear all the way on it. When I went and tried winding it up, it wasn't engaged on the pinion gear all the way, and it kind of stripped a couple of the teeth off. But if I were to get it functional again, I have to fix that too. So there you can see the little hook engaging on that the spring tab. And looking at it now, I shouldn't be doing it this much. I should have my finger pressed on that, on the main shaft, so it doesn't pull off. Thank you, neighbor. That seems really good. Again, I should have had my finger pressed against the main shaft to simulate the cap, so it couldn't come off of the pinion gear. I wasn't thinking. And I got lucky. Now even the blind sow finds some acorns. More anise-seeds on the thread. Make sure them threads are lined up. There you go. There she is. All cleaned up and functioning again. Isn't that nice? Now I can go vibrate with it some more. Fairly straightforward. Again, you don't have to disassemble it all the way. You don't have to try and fiddle with that shaft to get it apart. You can clean it up just enough, getting it down to how I showed you. Again, unfortunately, you got to have all the tools. Here it is. Here's the, and so there it is. The poor razor, the other one, the donor razor. Sorry. Yeah. Unfortunately, had to really mess this other one up. You can see the shaft, it's in several pieces. Yeah, I had to make all those wrenches, those 4 wrenches, and that spring retainer. But, yeah, broke that screw off. I could get that screw out, but don't do that. And then, yeah, here's the shaft. That ring gear is, that shaft presses all the way through, from what I can tell, to the other end. And that's like nothing. That's like 60, 75 thousandths diameter, but that full length is like 600 thousandths or something. It presses all the way through the center of that, from what I can tell. I'm sorry. I should have tried focusing better on it. I get a good shot here. Maybe it's not all the way through. Maybe it's, but you can see it goes into there. It's pressed into that, and maybe some kind of, maybe I should have tried making some kind of special puller to clamp onto it. You could tell that that little hook presses into the side of it. That's where, and there I stripped the input gear. Instead, the gear cassette still works fine. I just have to get my hands on a gear, maybe an old Mo Control car or something. It's an old slot car. Oh, I'm such a barbarian. But yeah, I wanted to figure out how to take it apart without destroying the one I had so much sentimental value in. You know, that was the main purpose of the other razor. It was you know, it was a learning project. But yeah, now you guys know how one of those comes apart. It was fun. Yeah. Lane Stahly dead. I mean, Stahly Live Blade. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Check you later.